Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Masha Merkulova. I am the Executive Director of Club Z. And today we're hosting an incredible event with truly special people. I do want to take just 30 seconds to tell you about Club Z. Club Z is an unapologetically Zionist youth movement. What we do is we give teenagers education and tools to learn about Zionism, to learn about their identity, and to have the tools and the chutzpah necessary, the confidence necessary for them to have conversations about Israel, Zionism, Jews with their friends, with their classmates, with their school administrators and teachers. And that is our mission, is to build a network of articulate, unapologetic, proud Zionists who are joining Campus for Israel organizations and who are bringing Zionism to their communities. So that's about Club Z. Now, I would like to welcome our panelists today. We have Sylva Zalmanson and Anat Zalmanson-Kuznetsov. We have Danny Grossman, and we have Shlomi Kofman. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. A few words of introduction for each of our esteemed friends. Sylva Zalmanson yesterday I have a son who's a young adult, and he was asking me, he's like, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I am going to be talking to a person whose actions led for you to be born in freedom in the United States. So Sylva grew up in a very traditional Jewish home in Riga, Latvia. And with having that kind of upbringing, she has yearned to have a Jewish life. And of course, in Soviet Union, Jewish life did not exist. Sylva was the main heroine, if you will, of the documentary that her daughter proudly produced called Operation Wedding. If you have not seen the movie yet, I strongly urge you to watch it. It's going to be available to you, again, still for free until 5 p.m. Eastern Pacific time tomorrow, Monday. Sylva was instrumental in organizing 16 people, 14 Jews, 2 non-Jews, to do the craziest thing you can imagine, which is to buy out tickets for a small little airplane and try to steal the airplane and fly to freedom. Unfortunately, living in a police state of the Soviet Union, KGB have known about the plans. They were all arrested. 2 of the masterminds, if you will, were convicted and were given death sentences, and everybody else were given huge amounts of time in labor camps. Anat is Sylva's daughter, who grew up hearing that, did you know that your parents are heroes? Now, I cannot imagine really sort of like growing up with that in your head. My parents are here. They're my mom and dad. They're, Abba and Ima. So, and you also recognize that even though there's been so many little tidbits of information about what actually happened, there hasn't been a comprehensive, holistic, nuanced storytelling of what actually happened. And so you single-handedly made this movie that should be a required viewing for every person who values freedom and who wants to understand how the yearning for freedom is pivotal to the human condition. So I thank you both. Again, Sylva I am so grateful to you and to your cohort of what Russians still consider terrorists. And Anat, thank you for seeing this huge need and fulfilling it. So I'm very grateful to both of you. Also with us, we have Danny Grossman and Shlomi Kofman. Shlomi is our Consul General of the State of Israel in Pacific Northwest. And you cover a big territory from Alaska to Northern California. Although your counterpart got the Hawaii, so I don't know about that. Shlomi is a Refusenik himself. Shlomi was born in the Republic of Georgia, Georgia, and came to Israel when you were, I believe you said 9 years old. And Shlomi has been a diplomat for 20 years. You have served as a deputy consul general in New York, chief of staff to ambassadors in Washington, D.C. You served in Thailand and Shanghai. And I'm just so happy to have a fellow Ruju in the big office on Montgomery Street. And, Danny Grossman, what a full circle for you. Really, you started in a youth movement, Young Judea, and that's where you got involved in the Russian Jewish struggle, the Soviet Jewish struggle. And then you spent the summer of 1978, you spent studying in a Leningrad State University and met Refuseniks at that time. And then Danny came back to still Leningrad in 1985 as the political economic officer covering Northern Russia and the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And he also assumed responsibility of the human rights portfolio. During his nearly 2 years in Leningrad, he met often with Refuseniks, political activists, attended show trials, including the Refuseniks, guided Western delegations, and really supported the Refuseniks, so like behind the curtain. Danny was expelled from Soviet Russia in the late 1986. That's already after Perestroika started, by the way, as part of tit-for-tat round of expulsions. And really, in this case, of course, related to the human rights activities. You stayed with the State Department until you came back home to the Bay Area, where you rejoined the Bay Area Council for Soviet Jews. And now you are the head honcho, you're the biggest Jew in the Bay Area, you're the CEO of the Federation. So gentlemen, thank you very much coming to us from the big offices and joining us.
You're quite a way with words, Masha. Let me just say that.
Thank you, Masha. It's an honor to be. We're very excited to be joining you, and we know about your work, and we're very honored to be part of this panel. So
thank you. Okay, I'm gonna jump in, and really, there's two scenes in the movie. And again, if you have not seen the movie, you have to see it. There's two scenes in the movie that first it's Sylva and then it's Anat. You ladies have a visceral reaction. Your body is reacting to the outside world, and I don't think you were realizing it. And the first was when Anat, when you were across the street from the KGB building, and you, I could see that you were stumped. You couldn't move. Right. And then there's this like 20, 30, 17, 18-year-olds recruits, the KGB young recruits that are walking around. It was a very powerful scene. What was going through your mind? Why, like years later, what was going through your mind? Why do you think you were stopped in your tracks?
Are you asking me or my mom?
No, you.
Whoever wants to answer.
No, because okay, I'll tell my point of view and then my mom tells her point of view, okay? Because for me, first of all, we just arrived to Russia. We arrived from the airport directly. We went to the KGB house in St. Petersburg, what used to be Leningrad. And we were driving the car, and I asked my mom, and I even have it on video, though it's not in the film. I asked her, Mom, how do you feel? We are in Russia for the first time. She hasn't been in Russia since she was released in '74. How do you feel? And she says, I don't know, I feel nothing. It just looks like a beautiful city. I don't feel anything. I was actually feeling like immediate stress, and and I didn't have a good feeling. It's not like being a tourist. It was more like I felt hatred, to be honest. And my mom, she said, no, it's a beautiful city. What are you talking about? And then once we went down and we were across the KGB house, the big house, which were a lot of people were arrested there, including my mother at some point as well. And then suddenly she doesn't want to cross the street, and I didn't understand what is happening to her, because it wasn't like soldiers or anything. It was just like, I don't know how old they were, 17 or 18. They weren't aware of us. They weren't even looking at us. And I didn't realize it was a post-trauma thing that was happening. So only later when I saw the footage, I understood. So, Mom, why can you describe what was going through your mind at that moment when we were in front of the KGB house in Leningrad?
Yeah, you want me to remind again?
No, because we okay,
okay, yeah,
we're not going to argue about it again.
But I was after you said let's cross the street and exactly towards to the this.
I didn't say let's go to the soldiers. I just said let's cross the street. But my mom said she thought I said let's go to the soldiers. I don't know. I didn't say that. I didn't even notice them, to be honest. I really didn't notice them.
Yeah, and I said that I won't go to the soldiers. And you said then why not? It will be interesting.
No, I was joking. It was later. But mom,
but
okay.
I was in the same place where I felt a lot of danger. So it's I couldn't joke with to laugh with you. I was afraid. I was just afraid because I thought that you will do something crazy. And I was.
We had permissions. We had everything. We had like producers that were local producers that made sure that we can film and where we can film exactly. So I didn't feel worried, but maybe my mother didn't realize that. So I think for her, suddenly to be there, and it was just she was reminded of that, and then I tried to calm her down, which usually works with a joke, and I said, wouldn't it be funny if they arrest Sylva Zalmanson again? And she was like, that's not funny, And then later my producer, who is also from the former Soviet Union, he told me that he thought that I was actually being quite naive, and that even though we had permission to film everywhere, it still doesn't mean that they couldn't arrest us, even today. And but this is just to show the difference between someone who grew up in a free country, that I have no fear, and the difference between someone who grew up, I mean, for me it looks like a post-trauma, but actually maybe she was right about being concerned, and I was the one who was being naive, and you can see that in current events that are happening right now in Russia.
You can tell about your father, what he felt.
Okay. So my father, the reason he didn't come with us was because in 1999, my father went to Russia on a mission with the prime minister, the Israeli prime minister, diplomatic mission, and he also interviewed for a television show, which you saw in the film. That's the television show that you see him interviewed, and it kind of looks like he's in the trial, but it's not a trial, it's a TV show. And then when they were about to leave, suddenly they wouldn't let him, in the airport, they wouldn't let him go through because they said something wrong with his papers. So once again, he's in Russia 20 years later, and once again, they tell him, you cannot leave. And because he was with the prime minister company people, and of course they managed to sort it out quickly. But then he said, I will never go back to this country, not even to a country that is nearby. And that's why he didn't join us. So, you know, that's also part of the story. Yeah.
I don't think anybody would blame him.
No, I don't blame him, but we did miss him a lot during the, you know.
Right. Well, and I think what a lot of people don't realize, right? And I can completely understand Sylva's reaction, is that in Soviet Union, if you had a typewriter, the government would know about it. If you had anything, right? So to have a film crew next to the KGB building, I would imagine that there were phone calls being made while you guys were just meandering around outside.
Well, I don't think they knew who we were. I mean, we did have permission. We did came with a journalist ID, and we had like permissions in advance. But I don't think they actually knew what film we're doing. I don't think they were aware of that. Just like a film, you know. And so, you know.
Okay, so then the other scene in the movie, which was very powerful, is Anat, you realize, and you could see your brain working right in front of us when you realize that you knew that your mother have spent 6 months in solitary confinement, but you did not realize what it actually meant, the conditions that she was in. And that's when you break down, right? That's when you all of a sudden, and you say in the film, I was so naive, I had no idea. And that's, you see Sylva's, you see your mom's, she's just like, yeah, of course, this is where I was. And then she breaks into a waltz, right? And you're having this, again, the body reaction. So can you share what were you thinking? What conditions did you think she was in? And what was the mental connections that you were making right in front of us?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's very different from what people, like, for example, children of Holocaust survivors. It's very different because I think they're more aware of the trauma. But for me, and I think other children of prisoner of time, what you mostly hear is your parents are heroes, and you have like the hero, and no one is ever talking about what they had to suffer, you know, the price they had to pay for being a hero, right? And then I really didn't think about it too much. But if you would ask me, you know, I remember how I would imagine it, then I thought about like American prisons that you see in films, you know, that you have like a yard and they exercise, and then there is like a place when they all eat or whatever, you know. It's not amazing, but it's not horrible. And then when we went into the prison where she was there for about 6 months, in that prison specifically that you saw, which is, by the way, not in Russia, it was in Riga, Latvia. And this is why we were able to enter, because it's not part of Russia. It's a museum and everybody could visit it. If you go to Riga, it's in the center of the city. So, you know, I was 35 when we were filming, and my mother was 25 when she was arrested. And I could see her, I could envision her, 25-year-old, going into this tomb, you know, like, and there was no light, no air, no nothing. And outside was a sunny day, beautiful day. And you know, I could see her going there and not knowing when she would get out. And then, you know, that broke me, and I started crying. And then I couldn't stop crying, so I was just waiting in one of the cells, trying not to touch anything because it was very gross. And the whole scene where my mother is dancing waltz was actually done. I didn't see it. I only saw it later. She was doing it with the photographer. So it was all without me because I was busy crying.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, I wanna bring up our male panelists, if you don't mind me making assumptions. The story of Soviet Jewry is, this is one of the reasons why Anat felt compelled to make the film, right? It is, in a large part, it has been kind of lost in a shuffle a little bit. And, we have Passover coming up in less than a week, and we are retelling the story of Exodus. And this is how we remember. Famously, it's said that Jews don't have history, we have memory. How do we bring back this Soviet Jewish struggle that American Jewish community truly, right, united and stepped up? It took 20 probably years. Danny, you were sort of like at the forefront, in the middle, and in the back. So why do you think the story sort of like lost a little bit? Even me, I've been in the United States for almost 30 years, and I was not even aware of these things until about 10 years ago, until I started becoming more involved in the Jewish community. So that's a question to anybody who wants to take a stab at. Danny.
Sure.
Danny.
Yeah, I'm glad to kick it off. First of all, I have only honor and respect for you, Sylva. It's very emotional for me to see you on this, because what Masha didn't say is that when I became activated as a member of Young Judea in the Soviet Jewry movement, it had everything to do with your actions. In fact, I was standing in front of the Green Street consulate, the Russian consulate on Green Street, with an image of your face. So very powerful to be here with you. Second thing I want to say is that I think this movement was one of the great popular movements of the 20th century, period. When you think about the implications and the fact that it toppled a superpower and brought it to its knees, it's extraordinary. More to your question, Masha, which is a really good one and a very important one. Honestly, I think part of the problem is in the nomenclature. Like, there is no Soviet Union anymore. So when you say Soviet Jews, people don't, it's a bridge to nowhere. They don't, like, what is that? Because I find that the more I speak to people about my experiences in the Soviet Union, the more I realize they don't know what that is. So I think part of it is we have to reinvent the nomenclature so that people understand what we're talking about. And then the other thing I think to myself, and then I want to go to Shlomi because I'm really interested in his thoughts. Think about the impact of the book Exodus on Soviet Jews. I mean, obviously many books, but the book Exodus by Leon Uris had a particular impact. There needs to be a way, and I think, by the way, your film is definitely a part of this, but there needs to be a way in popular media and culture to create this compelling story that's viral. So I'll pause there and go to Shlomi.
Thank you. Well, as Danny said, I mean, I didn't have this honor of standing and demonstrating, but my family was basically my family applied for the first time to leave the Soviet Union in '74. And I think I don't, unfortunately, I cannot ask my father because he's no longer with us, but I think part of what inspired him was Sylva and of course and your husband, your friends action, and it's really an honor to be here with you. It's just phenomenal. I was so I was there with my family, and I went through the process as a kid, and I still remember it. It's very powerful for me because naturally I was already old enough to remember what the family went through. Old enough to remember that my father wrote 400 letters from Brezhnev all the way down to the smallest apparatchik in the KGB in Georgia to lead the Soviet Union. I know that, you know, I remembered he was called for questioning. He was coming back and drinking, as your husband, as it's shown in the movie, you know, the vodka, and he was like drinking a whole bottle of vodka in the end of, you know, and going to work after that. So we were part of it. It's very strong for me, of course. Now, and Anat, I will tell you, kol hakavod, bemet, I think it's amazing. It's a phenomenal project to document the story, to have something that people will remember, because without your action of filming it, the next generation we will not have this documentation, and that's an important piece. I think that, and I want to talk, Masha, I want to answer your question, but more from the Israeli perspective. I think this story is still somehow lives in Israel much stronger than here, because of the big concentration of Soviet Jewry movement, because of the big concentration of those who came in the 70s, between 72 and 74. And also, it's kind of, you know, having 18% of the population speaking Russian, having Russian origin, that kind of keeps it very strong. And the last sentence I will say is the following. Danny, you mentioned is one of the greatest movement of the 20th century, but it's also a story of human rights. And I think the way to bring it back in today's world, because although the Soviet Union, you're absolutely right, the Soviet Union doesn't exist, it's not relevant. It's like talking about the Ottoman Empire in a way. But I think the way to bring it back is a story of human rights struggle, as a story of that you know will once we focus on the human rights angle here, on the struggle for human rights, on the struggle for equality, on the struggle of movement, that has more relevant today, especially to the young generation. And that's the way to connect. And the last thing is maybe to connect through, you know, continue telling stories. You're talking about Passover, and Passover will continue telling the story, and we need to continue to tell the story. And the movie and other stories, once they will be told, or they will continue to tell them. That's the mission.
So I actually created an educational program titled "Let My People Go." That's in Hebrew and in English. It was created for the Israeli Prime Minister Office Nativ, which I don't know if you know, but Nativ was the secret office, the first one in the world. It was formed in '52. That the sole aim was to bring Jews from the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc. So in my program, I try to continue, you know, to connect what was happening then to what's happening now. So, for example, we have lessons like how to identify fake news of today from history, from Soviet media, and then also we have like a lesson about protest, because in the 70s they had very interesting protests, very creative, non-violence, and it brought a lot of media attention without violence. And this is something that is very related for today. And I'm very happy that the Israeli Education Ministry is really embracing this project, and it's just recently was released. So they are promoting it to teachers, and we have, and next year they're also going to incorporated in the formal education, not just the informal. But in the English, in the Jewish schools, like abroad, I mean, not in Israel, I don't have really access to them. So it's just, but I was really, we have so many lessons there for everything, for Passover, for Independence Day, for Shoshana, for everything. So, you know, I just put on the chat, I added the link, so I'll be happy if you want to review it.
Thank you. No, this is great. You know, one thing I learned, I think there are more Jewish anything curricula than there are stars in the sky. now we just need to marry and find people who will actually educate it, and bring it to our young Jews. You know, when Zionism is on a campus pronounced as hate speech, that puts our kids in a very difficult situation. And so, is there anything we can learn from the Soviet Jewish struggle? How can we normalize, if you will, the Jews? How could we normalize Zionism? How can we empower our young students to be proud of who they are, and also to not be afraid, to not be afraid, right? Sylva, you have, I watched another interview, and I don't remember if it was you or if it's Eduard who said, we knew that there's 50% chance that we will be stopped before we board the plane. And we knew that there's a 50% chance, the other 50% is that we're going to be shot from the sky. So 100% we knew that we will not be allowed to leave Soviet Union. Eduard,
sounds like my mother sentence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Eduard packed prison clothes, and Sylva packed freedom clothes. So much courage. It's unbelievable. How do we take a little bit of that courage and disperse it to our now students? How do we empower them? What can we learn from you and also from the struggle itself?
If I can just,
Yes.
make this question a little bit more specific to my mom, because you lived in a world, you were born to a very anti-Semitic environment. And not only the children in the school, also the teachers, also the television, also the newspaper, everything was telling you that being a Jew is the worst thing you can be, that being Zionist is definitely, that Zionism is like, I don't know, like they compare it to Hitler, etc.
Right.
How could you stay strong against all this brainwash? I'm not sure if I would have been able to, because I've watched a few brainwashing videos of the Soviet Union, and I don't know if if I saw it for much longer, maybe I start believing them as well. No.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to say something that it would be understandable, but what from beginning, when you are a child, you go to meet children, and you want to play with them, and you want to be like them, and then you realize that you are not accepted, you are different. So when you grow up, so you understand that it's not occasionally, and even you will explain something that is not true, nothing will not help, because anti-Semitism is like a racism. You can't fight just with your explanation. It's always was and always will be. So you have to choose your way. So I don't believe that it will help something to. For me, it was understandable that I can't live there. There. We were lucky, our generation were lucky that Israel already exists. It was just a big luck.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it was, you know, if not for Israel existence, probably they didn't have this victory. And of course, to by the way, Danny, thank you for holding my mom's signs. But of course, it was thanks to a lot of things, and you know, the Cold War and the fact that Jackson-Vanik Amendment that stopped the trade between USSR and the USA. But I still don't believe, if Israel didn't exist, I don't think they would. First of all, they had not, like, where would they go? Just to the USA? It wasn't. My mom, you told me you wouldn't have gone. You wouldn't have done it for any other country but Israel, you said.
Yeah, because Israel is the country where it was our past, and the desire to live there with common future with other people, and what I wanted to say.
I think that's it.
Yeah, yes. And when you know what, it was I remember a song in Yiddish where ein soll gehen, that where I would go, there is no place for me. And in every history, our history, chosen people history, it was what others did with us. Our destiny was depends on others, but only in Israel it's our
makers of our own fate,
and we belong to this Judaism, even though you believe or not believe in God, yes, but you're there, it's your home, and our people are taking our destiny depends on us, not like it was in this place, in this country. It just meant this country it killed so many thousands of Jews, and there were hundreds of thousands of Jews, and that was people. That was our history in every country where Jews. It was a time when they were killed and they were not desired, and that's in any time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm actually gonna. Sylva, you're muted. Oh,
Masha, I'm glad to. If you'd like an idea to the question you asked, I'm glad to share something. Unless you want to move it.
Yeah, no, please share, because I think the question still remains. How do we translate this courage and transmit it to the young Jews of today?
Right. So I'm not sure I'll use the word courage, but I'll certainly use the word knowledge, passion, and commitment. So to me, the genius of the movement, the thing that made it work was the visitors back and forth, the thousands and thousands of Jews from around the world who went into the Soviet Union. And I saw this firsthand. I mean, I was with Refusenik families, 5 nights a week. And on most nights, there were visitors from the West, an extraordinary, a boost to the morale for sure of Jews in the Soviet Union. But it transformed the lives of most of the Jews who visited them. So when they came back, they had two things. They had knowledge and they had commitment and passion. And I mean, for example, when I came back from studying in the Soviet Union in '78, I was on the Berkeley campus, and I was cold calling Nobel Prize winners, asking them to sign letters about Soviet Jews. I mean, what chutzpah, but I was there. I saw them, so I felt. So, I mean, the translation is probably obvious, but, I think that the programs that get our kids to Israel, not just get them there, but establish personal connections, so they're not talking about something abstract, is, I think, a really key part of the piece. The only other thing I'll say is that it's not coincidence that Israel feels it so much more strongly. First of all, as Shlomi said, 1 million people of a population of 9 million or 7 million Jews is an exceedingly large percentage of people who came from that place. So clearly, but the other thing that you need to know is that most of the activists, most of the Refuseniks, I think nearly all of the former prisoners went to Israel. And that is also not by accident. There's 100 reasons why. I was in the room where it was being debated and discussed. So and that's meaningful. That means that in Israel they have those people. And then the final thing I want to say, because I don't want to lead to a miscommunication or a confusion. The Soviet Union no longer exists, but Sylva, I can't tell you how much I recognize and resonate with your PTSD, because you and I both know that Vladimir Putin comes from the KGB directorate of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, and they haven't forgotten anything. They still have all their files. So when I went back, I felt, I didn't have the experience you did, thank God, but I understand what you're saying, believe me.
So let me maybe jump in and say 2 or 3 sentences. I think it starts, a lot starts and ends with just a knowledge of history. Just a connection to history, and not necessarily to Passover history, but to modern history. And it's a challenge. I think it's a global challenge. It's a challenge in Israel too. It's a challenge here, that the recent history is not, it's not really often, it's not something that people want to consume unless you really like, you really like, history junkie, and you love, especially when you're 16 or when you're 14, and you see in Israel, you see here startups and successes, etc. Like, how many people are really choosing to immerse into historical lessons? And it's kind of a reality that we live in. And I think the challenge is really continue to acquire and pass on the history. And the more we have modern documentation to the history, the more we can continue telling that, and that's a huge thing. Yeah, that's basically Masha.
Well, I want to thank you to all of you for this, and I also want to end. And I think it's nice to bring youth to Israel, and it's great when they know the history. And I also live in a Bay Area where pretty much every anti-Israel Jewish organization have started, right? From Code Pink to, if not now, was started by a UC Berkeley student and a friend. And I think that's why I think it's so important not just to educate, but really to connect their Jewish identity to Zionism. It's much easier for the Russian Jews, because for Russian Jews, being Jewish was never really about religion. It was a matter of nationality. That was the number 5 line in a passport. Yes, Еврейка, Еврей, Jew. The struggle. So listen, I'm sitting here in our headquarters, in our clubhouse. I have 20 plus students down over there in the hall, and they're studying the history of Gaza and the disengagement, so they can understand why is there every couple of years we have the flares with the Gaza, right? And I think it's really important for American Jewish education to teach not just what we call cherry tomato Israel and Zionism, but really to prepare the students to have the conversations about what they're going to hear and what they're going to see once they get to campus. Especially relevant for California is our ethnic studies curriculum, which is much improved, but still has big issues, right? BDS has been taken out from the main curricula, but it's being added to the footnote. So that is what is so challenging, I think, for many of the parents, for many of the educators, is how do we then, once they know something, how do we inspire them to actually do something with that knowledge? So yes, so I will move on. Let me check the questions that have been posed. Let's see. Here's the question. Do you think, and this is from Ilana. Ilana, I'm going to turn your kind of pessimistic assessment into hopefully something inspirational. Do you think American Jewry and Israeli Jews, do you think we could come together again? Do you think Soviet Jewish movement really inspired, it brought the community together? Do you think we could come together again? Danny, it's for
sure,
you.
You're
the Jew Gadol here.
No, there's lots of Jew Gadols in this conversation.
Danny, you're stay here permanently. I leave in a year and a half, so I'll let you answer it first.
Nice, okay. First of all, I'll say, Masha, very lovingly that was a very Soviet manipulation of the question that was. But I understand the intent, and I'm comfortable with that. Look, I think it's imperative. I think we have to find a way to arrest what I think is a drift of Jews here and in Israel. And I think there's some really promising facts on the ground. So here Shlomi can speak more, but I think Israel is paying a lot more attention to incorporating education about the diaspora into their programming, so that there's not just an understanding and we're moving away from the word diaspora, but of global Jewry, right? Because it's not there's insiders and there's outsiders, but of global Jewry, and I'm really encouraged by that because I think that'll facilitate the kind of connection we're talking about. Here we deal with many of the challenges you talk about, but we're absolutely resolute that Israel's homeland, and it's imperative that we create these honest and level connections. Not the relationship of benefactor to beneficiary. We give money to Israel, so but we're equals on most levels.
Thank you, Danny. So, look, first of all, different views in the Jewish community is something which is part of our DNA, and that's it's not something new. And we always argued. We argued 2,000 years ago, and we argued in the first Zionist Congress, and we argue today. Still, despite the argument, we have a very, very strong connection. And that's something when you go and you check and you measure how many delegations, how many youths, how many birthrights, how many just eighth graders going to Israel. That's phenomenal. I mean, there is no other instance of other schools, or let's say Chinese or Japanese or any other school traveling to home country and keeping connection. So this is unique. This is unprecedented. Whether it's less or more today, I think it's more today than before. And Danny you probably have the numbers. I'm not sure it's less today than before, even from the Bay Area. So this is one point. Two, Masha, to your point about the BDS, absolutely the kids have to know their connection and the history and why and how. And this is something that we have to pass and we have to discuss. And the complexities of Israel are hard to communicate, but still we need to do that. I mean, they're hard to communicate because of the distance, but still the connection and the importance of Jewish state and the reminder of the fact that without Jewish state, people here or elsewhere would not be able to stand strong and still like they're standing today. And 67, 48 and 67 are definitely empowered Jews around the world. So that's a huge, that's enough. And third, we and the Minister of Diaspora and other frameworks in Israel are having a constant conversation about how do we make the connection with mainly with the U.S. Jewry, because it's so, because of its size and its importance, stronger. How do we talk? And as Danny said, the conversation of having, it's not about money, it's not about, it's two communities that have to continue to discuss and preserve the connection. The U.S. Jewry is a huge value to Israel. It's a huge value also as a secular Judaism, as Judaism of the movement and Judaism of thought, but so does Israel. And this conversation, there's so many different frameworks that we talk, and this has to be, it has to go down to the students, Masha, like you're doing, that people will absorb it and will learn how to work with it. We have, the relationship today is I would say between the Israel and the Israeli establishment and the communities here is strong. It does have challenges, but at the same time, we are committed to make it stronger. And that's the most important thing. And if we talk about the movement, if we talk about the religious pluralism.
Right. Danny, there's a question from Catherine Wolf, and it's in two parts, but I will summarize it. Do you see any parallels between the Soviet oppression and the critical race theory and allegiance to the both? Is there anything, do you see any parallels? You are stumped. I love it.
Yeah, well, I want to be thoughtful. Of course, I could take a page from your book and just change the question. Yes, you're asking about lollipops and unicorns? Let me tell you. Kidding. Look, I think the suppression of truth is a through line to a lot of what we're dealing with generally. You mentioned, Masha, the Soviet misinformation campaigns. After I was expelled from the Soviet Union, the U.S. government sent me out. This was 1986, as you said. U.S. government sent me out to Africa on a mission with a delegation to combat Soviet disinformation that the U.S. government had created the AIDS virus and spread it in Africa. I mean, ludicrous, right? Except that the Soviets have been doing this since Lenin, so they're really good at it.
Danny, I remember reading that in Pravda, that HIV was created by CIA. I remember doing that.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So we know both ends of that story. So I think I'd want to think more specifically about that question, but I think that's the line I would follow is the manner in which the Soviets not just suppressed but distorted truth.
Okay.
You know what? Maybe it's Masha. What do you think? Is it a good time to show a little bit of Soviet propaganda video or?
Yes.
Well, it's two archives that were not shown in the film. Well, we have a lot that wasn't shown in the film, of course, but I wanted to share with you these two archives. In the first one, you'll see Khrushchev in a statement when he was in the United States. And the second one you'll see from the Soviet television. So you see the difference between how the Soviets were talking to the free world and how the Soviets were talking among themselves.
In our country, Russians, Jews, Ukrainians, Turkmen.
מנהיגי ברית המועצות בכל התקופות מרבים להצהיר על חופש הלאומים בארצם. חרושצ'וב בביקורו בארצות הברית. כל העמים בארצנו, כולל היהודים, אם בשוויון וחופש ובידידות. אנו גאים בעובדה שלא קיימת בארצנו בעיית לאומים.
And we're very proud of the fact that the national problem does not exist in our country, that all the many nationalities inhabiting the Soviet Union are together marching towards one common aim.
Мы сознательно не показываем лица этих людей, решивших покинуть Советский Союз. Они ослеплены сионистской пропагандой, сбиты с толку разными западными радиоголосами. Они на пороге своей беды.
So, you know, I wanted to ask, actually, it's a good, I think it's a good question to ask, for example, Danny, because you were active for Soviet Jewry, but like what made you start? And did you know when did you start to learn about it even? Because I know that in the 60s, there were a few people that knew there was some activity, but it was definitely not as big as it was after 1970.
Well, thank you. And thank you for showing that, that propaganda clip. Wow. Yeah, I mean, as you know, as Masha said, and I was active in the Zionist youth movement, Young Judea, in the you know, late 60s. And as you know, after the Six-Day War in 1967, the Soviet Jews themselves changed. That was a seminal moment in their that had the same effect then on us. That's where I became involved. Literally, you know, Sylva, your friends and your husband's movement ignited all of us and got us very active. So that's where it started for me. And, you know, and as I said before, and I do relate this to maintaining and sustaining personal connections with Israel, the fact that people kept coming back then from the Soviet Union and we would hear their stories and hear their tales was really powerful. It was really powerful.
Well, I think the media today is not so different than, not just the media. I mean, even posts on Facebook and stuff that I see. And I was trying to, I am in one of the lessons that I made on how to identify fake news. I am raising the question: can we identify? And for me, the answer was no. We cannot identify fake news. So our only job is to investigate the information that we receive, and because a lot of the times also it can be fake news that also fit my agenda, but I'm not going to believe it until I investigate it, and if I don't have the time to investigate it, I'm just not going to believe it. That's it. So that's yeah, but I feel like it's in this sense it's the same.
You know, Masha, so Anat, I had one other thought for you because of your extraordinary work in really capturing this history is, I think, unless you know more than I do, I think it's time to capture the stories on video of not just the Refuseniks, but particularly the prisoners of Zion, the ones who served time. But also the activists and the Hebrew teachers. I have many friends in Israel who are in that category. I hear them talking about wanting to preserve these stories. I don't know that there's a video project that's collecting them. Maybe you do.
Well, yeah, not by me, because for me, I don't do archives. You know, it's not, for me, I do more like stories, and I'm a storyteller. But there is a big project, and you can see online full interviews. I uploaded some of mine, by the way, but also by Professor Yaakov Ro'i. I think he interviewed more than 100, and also Glenn Richter, who was very known from the student struggle for Soviet Jewry in New York. He also interviewed a lot of Refuseniks and activists. And it can be found in the Yeshiva University archives, and I don't remember where Professor Yaakov Ro'i's archives are, but it's definitely available. And but you know, the thing is, what I noticed when I started working on my project is that there is a lot of material available, but it's not accessible for people who don't know anything about it, you know, because it's like, it's so much, so many. No one is going to watch all those. I mean, if you're doing a research, yeah, but not if you just want to teach a quick lesson. So this is why I made it more accessible for younger audience and for educators.
Incredible, incredible. So we're definitely going to be using those resources. Thank you, Anat, very much. We do need to wrap up. But before I want to show one more clip, I just realized something while you were showing this clip, and Mori Shapira, who was also very instrumental in the Soviet Jewish struggle, he pointed out that it's the Soviet Union who invented Zionism is racism slogan, right? And that was brought onto the United Nations. What is incredible in that clip, in Ovir, in the exit visa, is the divorce between Zionism and Judaism, right? And this is, we're feeling it now, right? Well, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just against Israel. This is, I'm telling you, like, Russians invented Elders of Zion in the late 1800s, and then they came up with this. We're still, you know, the Soviet, the Russian tentacles are going deep for the Jews. We need to wrap up, and to wrap up, I want to play a clip with the quote by Eduard Kuznetsov. Could we have that clip, please? There was no sound. Okay, we'll try it again in the meantime.
Историю. Я полагал, что личность может очень много. Все зависит от, так сказать, от точки бифуркации. Если ты попал в эту точку, когда действительно жест одного человека может так привести к обвалу невероятному всему. Но таковую точку специально никто не нащупает. Ведь то, что мы сделали...
Okay, and we're gonna cut. Okay, so I'll summarize what Eduard said. And Eduard said that an individual has a power to really change the whole system. And I think that is the main lesson that I want everybody to remember, because we know that lesson. We have been telling these lessons for many generations now. And that is that each and every one of us, there are so few Jews in the world, that each and every one of us must use the power of our voice, the power of our actions to make the world a better place. And we should start with our own tribe, to empower our youth, to tell the stories that are incredible, inspirational, and amazing, and to be proud of who we are and all that we have brought to the world. So thank you very much, Danny and Shlomi and Sylva and Anat. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for everything that you will continue to do. I can't wait to see a feature film. Is it going to be a drama about Operation Wedding? Would love to, you know, I can't wait. It has to be a big rollout in the Jewish world to see this now going to be a feature film, not a documentary. Again, thank you very much. Please keep in touch. Our website is clubz.org. If you have any teens, send them our way. You can sign up for the updates about this film at operation-wedding-documentary.com. We will also have it on our Facebook page. Shoot me an email, masha@clubz.org, and I'll direct you. Thank you very much, everybody.